Hi, my name is Dinh Ngo, and my journey in terms of um, coming to the U.S. and making, Houston a home has been an interesting one. In January of 1989, I, five siblings, including myself and my parents, left Vietnam and to kind of seek new opportunities and a new home. Uh, my dad's 70th birthday is coming up, and we were looking through some of the photos, and it's it's looking at them. The word home comes to mind, and home is about family, um, regardless of where you're at. Even leaving somewhere so familiar where you grew up and coming to a whole new country, uh, if you're with your family, that's where home is. And we made a new home in Oklahoma. Lucky for us, our grandparents and some of my dad's siblings were already in the States and they had made a home in Oklahoma. And so we settled in Oklahoma. Um, through time, after school, went to school and found a job working for an oil and gas company. And that took me down to Houston. But really, what took me to Houston another beautiful Vietnamese woman, and she's like no other, I guess, and she's definitely not one of your you know at home cooking type of lady. She was I guess in Vietnamese you have the firecracker. It's called pháo. She is a firecracker. She's the life of a party, and beautiful and smart, everything all wrapped up in one. And so I met her when I came down here for a few work trips, and the rest is history. We have two awesome, fun little boys together, and I've made Houston now Houston is my home. But again, going back to the word home, it's where your family and the people that you care most about. And so thinking about the um, the play Vietgone, right? The love story. Um, what was lost when the main characters in Vietnam, when they lost their loved ones, they found here, and what they found was love, and that love became home, right? Uh, and one of the most important things in Vietnamese culture is home and family, and we take care of our home, we take care of our family, and it's incredibly important to us. And so when we think of America as home, one of the most important things I think about is participating and participating beyond our homes, because America is now our new home. One of the things that I hear a lot about is, Vietnamese, when we talk to each other, we tend to refer to Caucasians as Americans. And one of the things I always like to remind folks is we're just as much of an American, this because this is our new home now. Uh, we have a Vietnamese cultural background, yes, but we are just as American as anyone else. So the word that comes to my mind is exploration. When we talk about road trips, we're exploring. When we talk about diversity or inclusion, it's about exploring things that we are not familiar with. And when the day you're born, uh, each and every day you're within a certain environment, and someone takes you out of that environment and sets you into a whole new world. Um, if you have the mindset to explore, it, it's it's an excitement, right? And so when we set foot in Oklahoma, and I this the memory of it is just solid, because when we got off that plane, it was I believe it was in January, so it was very cold, and it happened to have snowed. It was like a blizzard. I mean, and so for an individual who grew up in the tropics, right? sunny, hot, humid, and you walk off the plane and you're, even though you're inside, from the plane into the terminal, you feel this cold air, right? And then from there you get into a car and you're just looking outside and everything is white. I mean, it was almost like a fairy tale, if you will, because you're in a whole new world. That's what some of these plays are about, right? Is exploring a world that you might not have thought to look into. Because I feel incredibly lucky to have been born, and I'm right at the cusp of the millennials. I'm not completely a millennial, but I'm right there. I'm still within that millennial. But what I had a chance to do was what you would call compare and contrast. And what I mean is, I was not so young to where I was removed from the conversations about the war, but I was not present during the main parts of the war to have the strong feelings of loss and sadness as our parents. And so, kind of being in between those two worlds, we have had a lot of conversations, both with my parents, with community members. And so, for the, I guess, a bit older generation than I, very strong sentiment about the war. Sentiment of lost, having lost their home. Some folks won't even go back to Vietnam. I absolutely love to go back to Vietnam, and for me, it's every time I go back, it's about a fresh perspective and how life is progressing and moving forward. And I wish that, and I want that for those folks who hold on to those memories. However, I'm also sympathetic of the pain, of the deep pain of loss, and not just loss of home, but loss of family, and a lot of even material possessions that they hold dear. And so I can absolutely understand that, and can appreciate that. Um, you had another follow-up question. How was it viewed in terms of the U.S. For us? My wife's, excuse me, my dad's family, my dad's dad worked for the Red Cross in Vietnam, and the Red Cross was actually ran by a number of Americans, and my dad also interacted with Americans. So for us, we never had any strong negative feelings about America. I mean, if anything, the opportunity to come to the United States was an incredibly exciting, news when we were able to pass through all the checks to be allowed to move to the States. Um, I guess if we were to talk about the war, for me, it's always this balancing act of having the respect and the empathy for those who've lost a lot. Um, but also in that same kind of parallel reality, um, looking forward at the bright future, and um, wanting the very best for the folks in Vietnam, because there are some young folks, and I'm involved in a nonprofit organization, Sunflower Mission, and we build schools. And the idea behind that is education. You cannot take away knowledge once it's been gifted. And so that's how I balance my two worlds of the older generation, talking to them, appreciation of their perspective, but then also helping things to move forward. In terms of when we were in Vietnam and they were going through the paperwork and stuff, it was kind of kept hush hush. I think it's one of those things where they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to jinx it. And so that's the impression that I got from them. And then when it was like official, then they talked about it and were excited about it. From that point, I remember the excitement. We got our things, and we also flew. We flew to Thailand. And what I remember about the, I don't know what you call it, but kind of, I guess, processing center for immigrants, We stayed there for a week, just lots of people, and you just kind of huddled together as a family. Um, there was angst, and wanting to leave that. It was not a comfortable environment, right? I mean, you didn't have beds, you slept on the floor. It was just this massive building, and all you had was your family and your belongings, and everything was just kind of clustered together in your little corner. Um, but the excitement to have an opportunity and to start a new life, I think it's like an adrenaline rush, right? You kind of forget that. And so then we flew to the States, and stopped. The first stop was actually in Seattle, Washington, and then we changed planes to head to Oklahoma City. Yes, I did have an immigration experience. I would not. It would be unfair to compare it to the immigration experience and stories that we're hearing today. Um, yeah, in fact, I'm at a loss for words to how to process how I feel about it one way or another. And the reason for that is because I have so many different perspectives at this point, and I can identify with all of them. I can identify with being an American and having worked to get to where I'm at. And saying, okay, well, we all contributed to these resources as an American. Who gets to make the call in terms of where these resources go, right? Some appear to be more fair than others, and none of the perspectives are bad or good. And so I find myself not exactly taking sides one way or another. At the same time, while my journey wasn't the most comfortable, having been through that journey, I can imagine what it's like for some of the immigrants today and their hardship, and realizing that they probably didn't have it anywhere close to how I had it, right, in terms of making their way into the States. So I'm very torn. The immigrant issue, so many perspectives, and I've yet to take a position one way or another. I can identify with, I can say this simply though, I can absolutely identify with an individual who is seeking an opportunity for something better. And I think that's all I have to leave it at. An American is home. And America is home, right? And an American is a family within that home. And I do a lot of community outreach. I do nonprofit work, um, purely because I'm reaching out to other members of the American family. I am treating America like any Vietnamese would treat their home, and that means to actively participate, actively reach out, and get to know um, all of the things that America has to offer. And that means its people, and that means all of the resources and the different arts and different things that are in the community that are available to us all.